Hello, please let me see your ticket stubs for the Double-Edged Double Bill, where you get 2 film and or media discussions for the price of 1, which is nothing. Each week, Adam Thomas and Thomas Mariani will come to the table to randomly select the yin and yang of a double feature. One will have 2 good movies, the other 2 bad ones. Both will have to pick a number between 1 and 10 in order to seal their fates for each episode. Let the chaos begin. I am Thomas Mariani.
And I am Adam Thomas.
And we are here in the long ago, before man actually existed. And we are here to talk with one of the most prehistoric creatures of our age, the Scott Johnson. Listen everyone as it tries to talk. Scott, talk. Beautiful. How you doing, Scott?
Doing okay.
But in case you couldn't tell from that, we are doing an episode all about...
No, they couldn't tell from that. No one can tell from that.
I have no idea what that was.
Hey, I'll give you the experience. I was a stegosaur in a 4th grade play.
Exactly, because we are talking about dinosaurs this week. The week this is coming out, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom is being released. And so let's talk about good movies of dinosaurs. Yeah. I'm judging it now. Because fuck Jurassic World.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, not a good movie. But do you like dinosaurs in general in cinema, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily one of my go-to, but I don't have any problems with them. It's not like I consider myself a dinosaur movie fan, but yeah, I mean, I don't shy away from it either. I mean, Jurassic Park, the original, was fucking mind-blowing, but that's, I'd argue that's the last good dinosaur movie.
Maybe we can test that. But Scott, you're not going to be involved in the actual discussion part when we get to it. But are you a fan of dinosaurs in cinema?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I grew up with dinosaurs. I do love them. I have very distinct memories of watching Jurassic Park and the sequel. And, of course, as we talked about last podcast, love the first Land Before Time. Very influential. Dinosaurs need to make a comeback, but with good movies.
Yes, indeed they do. And we're going to talk about both good and bad dinosaur movies. And, of course, Scott, this is your first time doing the picking, so here's the gun, and get ready to shoot. Because first, we have the 2 good movies that you will select a number between 1 and 10 for, of my choosing, and then you will do the same for Adam's 2 bad picks. So, number between 1 and 10, Scott.
All right, let's load up this horse tranquilizer. 3.
At number 4 is a movie we were actually just talking about, the original Jurassic Park.
Yes, I cannot wait to talk about this fucking movie.
Celebrating its 25th anniversary, though at number 5 wasn't anything too slow. And interesting, I think the oldest movie we've ever tried to select was The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
That's a great movie, dude. Good call.
It is, yes, and it's a really good dinosaur movie. But we got that good one, and now, load up that horse tranquilizer again, Scott, because now it's time for the bad from Adam.
Well, I think you'll need something stronger than horse, so let's move up to elephant. Number 9.
At number 10 is the fuck. I'm sorry, Thomas. The Whoopi Goldberg Theodore Rex.
Oh my God, we're doing Theodore Rex.
Yes,
it's gonna be so terrible.
And at number 1, I had Jurassic World.
Oh wow! I'm glad we didn't repeat ourselves. This is gonna be great. Yeah, I'm so excited. We have another guest that will be coming on. But Scott, thank you for joining us here. Last minute plugs real quick before you vacate the premises.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at ScottPJThoughts. That is Scott with 2 T's, letter P, letter J. If you like craft beer and drinking to get through Theodore Rex, you can find me on porchdrinking.com. And also, if you like Stardust, where you might see a review of another dinosaur movie, you can find me on my username, SilkyPJ. That is Silky with IE at the end, and PJ.
Yes, and in this time, when Scott was plugging things, I stole his tranquilizer gun. So here's a dinosaur tranquilizer. Bye, Scott!
Oh, no.
Well, we gotta hide this body and then watch our double feature, so we'll be back right after this.
The future's toughest cop is Katie Coltrane.
I'm back.
And now, she's getting a new partner.
Dun, 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 dun.
His name is Teddy.
Hit me. It's a dinosaur.
You two have solved this case together.
What? What? It's a dinosaur.
New partner, Coltrane?
New Line Cinema presents
Hey, you think you're gonna get somebody?
Whoopi Goldberg. And introducing Teddy. Theodore Rex.
Pig.
It's a tale you'll never forget.
And we are back, and we're welcoming another guest after Scott was here in the intro. Our first returning guest ever. This is a milestone. Sam Brutuxan, who you might have heard from the Star Wars episode. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm here to talk about puppet dinosaurs, mostly the plasticky kind. In case you can tell, I'm referring to Theodore Rex.
I mean, he is very rubbery. But Sam, the reason I asked you to be back on here is because even more so than you're a Star Wars fan, I know you are a very, very big fan of dinosaurs in film.
Those are very big words. I'm a very subtle fan. I'm not very out there. I'm not very outgoing about my fan of giant lizards. But no, I am.
My favorite dinosaur is the Diplodocus. Oh, you don't know that one? A bit more obscure for you.
Yeah, how about that Diplodocus?
Diplodocus. Sam is not a paleontologist, at least a confirmed one.
Not a confirmed one. You call that a fucking baryonyx?
Like our situation with the heist episode we did a couple weeks ago, we're going to start with our bad feature, because I don't know if we have a lot to say about it, even though it's a fascinating film in terms of how it really became to be, and is ultimately a very infamous example of what the fuck Hollywood. It is Theodore Rex, which was released July 2nd, 1996, straight to video. It's our first straight to video feature that we've done. Interestingly, it was originally meant for a theatrical release, but unfortunately it was determined, based on terrible test screenings, to not have the silver screen. But maybe that's not unfortunate. Maybe that's incredibly appropriate, because this movie's garbage.
Yeah, I don't think it should have seen anything. It should have been just dumped in the desert somewhere.
Should be buried with the fossils. Shouldn't have been unearthed at all. Would you agree with that, Sam?
You know what? I don't appreciate the lies. I think this is a very big film. It is tremendous in that it is a movie about racial diversity, about racism in our current society.
Excuse me, Sam. Speciesism.
Speciesism. Sorry. It's almost as if the dinosaurs are black people in this movie.
And the black person is the racist. It's like Bright Origins.
What a fucking role reversal.
For those of you who don't know what the fuck this is a film starring Whoopi Goldberg as a futuristic cop who might be a cyborg. They kind of tease that.
Yeah, maybe. She could be.
There's a point where she gets, like, struck with electrical whatever, and she just pauses, so I guess she's a cyborg? I don't know. Point is, she's Whoopi Goldberg, and she is a tough-as-nails cop who loses her partner in the line of duty. Okay, you're gonna get a new, partner to help you out. And that partner is a genetically engineered humanoid T-Rex.
Oh.
The hilarity just comes out. So hardcore. Yes, Theodore Rex is her partner now. In this world where it's explained that dinosaurs have been created by this one character, the Elazar Kane, who also is the villain of the movie, who is trying to destroy all life on Earth.
Which they tell you within the first 5 seconds of the movie.
Including telling you the opening scene that happens mere milliseconds after the crawl ends.
Yep. I mean, and it's not even a mystery who the villain is, what its ultimate goal is, anything. So within like the first, like you said, milliseconds of the movie, there's no point to watch the movie. You know everything that's going on already.
That's not true. We don't know that he didn't like cookies before.
Oh, yeah, I'll give you that.
And he has a special machine built to fucking slingshot cookies into his mouth.
Yeah, and also, like, we talked last week about Rock-a-Doodle, which is a movie clearly trying to ape on the success of Roger Rabbit, mainly through, like, the live-action animation elements. But this is also trying to do that in terms of it's a buddy cop comedy where you have a special effects creature as your partner for the main character. And the difference is in Roger Rabbit, like, the world feels realistic, and it feels like it's lived in, and people know what's going on, versus this movie, it's so complicated with its world and also with its sort of subject matter that I think it's trying to be a kid's movie, but then at times it gets, like, really way too dark to be a kid's movie, so it's really just a case of, like, who the fuck is this for? Spoilers, no one. But
well, yeah, basically,
absolutely no one.
It's made by someone built for no one,
including Whoopi Goldberg, who infamously tried to get out of doing this movie after she made a verbal agreement. And
what a shock!
And actually, the producer filed a $20 million lawsuit that was settled after she agreed to star in the movie for $7 million as opposed to $2 million that she'd originally asked for. And watching the movie, it's almost as if you can tell because she hates being there.
It's also like her character was written to be a huge racist. I think the screenwriter had like some sort of beef against Whoopi Goldberg because every time she's on screen, she always has to like be incredibly asshole-ish. And of course, it's because it's the whole good cop, bad cop routine. But it's done with this whole stem of like, it's trying to have this political commentary in the background that doesn't work at all. It's incredibly muddled. Not to mention that Who Framed Roger Rabbit works because of the time it's set in. This doesn't make any sense because it's in the future, yet it feels like a 50s detective noir. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's Blade Runner, Sam. Come on, clearly. Didn't you love that scene where Theodore Rex was just like, all these moments will disappear like tears in rain. Cookies!
Right, hit somebody with his tail. You said this. This movie's made for no one, and I absolutely agree with you. But I mean, clearly, I think it was marketed towards children. I mean, in the limited marketing it had. Now, honestly, when you guys were kids, if you saw this, would you enjoy this movie?
I can tell you, as a kid, I saw this movie.
Oh.
And like, I just remember Theodore Rex and 2 scenes, but after that, it was like an enigma. Like, I couldn't figure out what I watched. It was like I was watching the Da Vinci Code, just trying to piece the puzzles that Tom Hanks went along, except Tom Hanks was Whoopi Goldberg. And like, that was my cipher. That was my person who I was relating to the entire time. But no, it wasn't good.
Yeah, this is my first time seeing it in full. I've seen clips just from like online reviewer people like Red Letter Media did it on the best of the worst and stuff like that, and I'm just like, wow, this looks like such garbage. I can't believe it actually exists. And watching the movie in full, it's weird, because I could maybe see a world in which someone might have greenlit this back in the early 90s, but you could tell it was also a movie where the moment they got on set, and the moment that puppet came out, and the moment they realized, oh, this is Dinosaurs, the ABC series, they just realized, we've made a huge mistake.
That's totally what confused me, because I thought this had some sort of correlation with that TV show, because it's like, oh, it's like Dinosaurs, but it's set in the future? Because like the puppets look similar to the actual puppets on the show. So when I'm watching this, I have that huge confusion. Like, what the fuck is this going on? Is this tied to that or not?
Well, it's interesting. That's a show that dealt with, had these big animatronic dinosaurs doing humanoid things, and also had social commentary, and also had sort of like an appeal for kids, but also adults. But the difference is, it's missing, what's the word? Talent. It's a shame, too, because I've read some interesting things about the production of this movie, including because Whoopi Goldberg hated being on the set so much, the lead puppeteer, Bruce Lanolle, talked about being on the set, and the first day of production, the puppet wouldn't work. And he was so worried, he had Whoopi Goldberg looking bitterly down at his face, saying, is this thing gonna fucking work? And he's like, we're trying. It's like, boy, better! And then leaving. So that's the mood on the set.
Yeah, it's a big downer.
Yeah, and also Teddy, as he's called in the movie, doesn't shut the fuck up the whole time he's on screen.
He's always talking every second of the movie, and for no reason other than he's just a silly giant dinosaur detective. That's it.
I mean, it was so grating after like the first 5 minutes. I'm like, this fucking thing.
It's a movie where you can clearly tell in editing they're like, oh, there's something missing. Hey, George Newbern, why don't you come in and record some ADR? Like, there's so much ADR, like, fill awkward moments. It's like, you don't need that. You can build, like, mood or suspense or anything like that, but you just want to have him talk over and over again. And by the way, I didn't know this. George Newbern was the fiancé/husband from the Father of the Bride movies. I didn't know he was doing the voice. And you can tell he's not a comedian.
He's also the voice of Superman in most of the animated versions.
Yeah, from Justice League onward, he's been the voice of Superman, yeah.
That's crazy.
So since we obviously all really don't like this movie, do any of us have one part that either made us laugh or we actually thought was kind of good?
I can tell you, I can pinpoint it exactly. It's a moment that's so good it feels like it was most likely an outtake. There's a point where they go to a bar filled with extinct species, which were led around by a character who, if this was made in 2016, would have said, "Yas, queen, dinosaurs." Like, he's that over-the-top, like, gay stereotype. There's a point where Whoopi Goldberg is talking to a dinosaur that just, like, has a weird, stupid grin on its face, and she starts laughing, and she just says, "And you think you're gonna get somebody?" And then just walks away. That's a moment that I'm very sure Whoopi Goldberg just made up on the spot. Just, like, during an outtake, and they're like, fuck, let's put it in. It's the one genuine moment Whoopi Goldberg has of any kind of enjoyment in the movie.
Like, that wasn't a fake drink, I believe she hadn't said. That was an actual hard bourbon she was drinking or something. That was surreal.
Would you blame her, though, Sam? Would you blame her for doing it?
I'd be loaded.
I wouldn't blame the puppeteers who had to do this either.
I would have blamed the goddamn puppet. Sam, do you have a moment?
My one moment is honestly, it's the thing you probably hate. It's when Theodore Rex is muttering to himself. Whenever there's a serious moment happening off screen, like a genuinely serious moment, one or two like lines of dialogue he would say, like for some reason made me chuckle, just for clear absurdity. Not because it was good, but just because of the absurdity of it. And made me realize that this movie, if it had a more self-aware script, it would have been Blade Runner, but with Theodore Rex acting like himself throughout the entire movie, but everything's just dead serious. And like, but like the problem though is just like it's all about like the dialogue and the fact that like it's trying to be marketed towards children. Yet there's a gruesome death that happens in the beginning of the first 10 minutes of the movie. That's really fucked up. Actually, I had no idea the body was actually stripped naked.
And then later a dinosaur autopsy as well.
Dinosaur autopsy, yeah. It's like, I don't want to see that.
But to get back to that thing you're talking about, Adam, what about you? You brought this on us. Do you have a moment?
Yeah, I do. I just found it very funny. The way Theodore dresses, or Teddy, whatever you want to call him, the whole movie. He's got his sweater, his coat, his pants, and his shoes, you know. So they go to that thing to get him a disguise. It shows him with, you know, he's a Viking, and then he's a gunslinger and everything. And then his disguise that Whoopi Goldberg's character is like, oh, now he looks like a cop, is a different colored sweater, a different colored jacket, a different colored pair of pants. That's it.
Did you notice that his shoes, like his toes, actually had separate laces as well?
I did. And I like that they're undercover in a garbage truck with the police symbol on the side of the garbage truck.
Yeah, as they walk out in clear daylight, people noticing them pass by.
I know, and she's still in her cop uniform the whole movie.
You know, I'll also say somebody who I appreciated, who was sort of my surrogate throughout the whole movie, is Richard Roundtree, Shaft himself, as the commissioner, who the entire movie just looks constantly like, I hate these fucking people who work under me.
Yeah. Anytime he sees the dinosaur, he's like, Teddy? Like, what other dinosaur would it be?
Wow, this is a world where dinosaurs are all over the place. After all, we have a torch singer one voiced by Carol Kane.
Yeah.
Who looks pretty much like they just cloned the same puppet and just put a dress on it.
Oh,
and
completely.
lipstick.
And there's also just weird world-building moments. Like, they have a funeral for a dinosaur, like the dinosaur who died at the beginning, and they have this whole thing of, like, they liquefy it, and it's like, oh, he's gonna be put into the soil and feed these flowers? And it's like, you know, maybe that could have worked if you actually, like, built the world up more. That's a detail that on its own could have been interesting, but just in context, they brush over, like, yeah, you know, this is how it works.
Yeah, well, it's moments like that, and also they try to make us understand the dinosaurs by making them state that they're just like human beings, Like that moment I mentioned with the crime scene. Whoopi Goldberg comes in and says, like, you have sympathy for this dinosaur? And she's like, well, it's this weird thing where we feel for each other. And, like, if this was a clever screenwriter, she would have just flat out said, yeah, it's this thing called compassion. It's missing that, at least that start of, like, an actually good comeback, but it doesn't have any of that. It just states the most, well, no shit, they have feelings for each other. It's like they're a community in a suburban area. It's like they're an allegory for something. Now, excuse me, I gotta create my own cookie machine.
Cookies. Because that's his thing.
That's his thing. He loves cookies.
That's his character quirk, is he loves cookies. Just a curious few bits. The cast in this movie is very weird. We mentioned Richard Roundtree's in here. Stephen McHady, who you'd recognize, is playing the sort of underling of the main villain, who looks exactly like the villain from The Crow. With his long hair. Bud Cort is more annoying than he's ever been as another underling with his fucking version of like the Foot Clan from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies.
I fucking hated those henchmen so much.
Because they all talk with like the over-the-top squeaky voices and clearly ADR like maniacal laughs that are just garbage. Because it's a movie that's so talking down to any kid that would watch it, of just like, kids cannot watch a movie unless it's constant noise. Like, they can't enjoy a movie at all unless there is wall-to-wall noise of some sort. And I think there's no silent point of the soundtrack at all.
No. Yeah, absolutely. There's scenes where there's three characters completely talking over each other. And you can't even... It's like, wait a second. Who the hell is talking right now? You know, you and Sam alluded to earlier. It's non-stop dialogue. There's non-stop dialogue or crazy noises or... cookie shooters or whatever the fuck, just going off.
Now, if you had whatever the movie producer equivalent of a car salesman would be, like that person would just come and say, now, kids, you want to hear a dinosaur talk for every fucking second of this movie, and he talk about cookies, and he makes fart jokes? Well, here you go, kids, eat it up. And that's what this would be like.
Oh my god, the fart jokes, especially, they come in like in the later part of the movie, so they're just like, we gave up, kids. We don't care.
Fucking gave up. We don't
what
care.
What kids like? Kids like the farts. Put it in.
Farts are hot right now. The kids love the farts.
The interrogation scene is probably the worst bit in the movie, because it's the laziest thing you could do for interrogation scene. And, like, I thought they were going to lean toward more, well, he's a giant carnivore, so he's probably going to threaten them by just attempting to eat them. But it gets worse by him just sitting down, someone just farting, like, all the time.
Also, what's up with, in that warehouse scene, there's the character who's just literally, he's like, I'm the guy in the bag. Not a dinosaur. Not anything, just a weird puppet. Why?
My wife watched it with me, and she thought the same thing. She's like, wait a second. What the hell was that? I'm like, I have no idea. She's like, yeah, no, that, what? Like, we had to rewind it. I still don't understand what it was.
They clearly ran out of money for dinosaur puppets, so it's just like, what random-ass Jim Henson knockoff do we have available? And we have that, because fuck it. It's a weird fantasy world, you don't care, and we don't care either. And it just adds to, like, this whole world just feels less like any kind of surreal, weird world, and more like a McDonald's commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see it. With, like, grandma skateboarding in the background and shit like that.
Probably.
Oh, grandma's so cool.
Right, exactly.
I'm gonna go to McDonald's.
Let's get to our final thoughts about Theodore Rex. Sam, our guest, go first.
Well, I want to point out and say that the first phone call Rex receives is poorly coordinated because they're not in sync with each other. Like the operator is just responding, but just casually, and it's I don't know if you rewatch that scene and just go back, look at that, and just notice how disconnected the dialogue is between the two. And that's basically what you're getting throughout the entire movie. It's like you're getting two tonal whiplash throughout this entire movie. But not in a way that's interesting, in a way that's very mundane, surprisingly dull at points. And even despite my vastly, vastly insane curiosity of Theodore Rex himself, even that can prevent this movie from just being I would sadly say a waste of time.
Well, on that lovely note, Adam, your final thoughts on Theodore Rex.
This movie is fucking dreck. I've seen a lot of bad movies, especially in the last 7 weeks. But this, holy shit, man. I can't even explain my disdain for this movie. When it ended, I just wanted to sit up and just shit screams from my face. I quit.
Take a drink.
This is the one. This is the one that pushed me over the fucking edge.
Didn't you just want to do anything else throughout the entire movie? Like, just literally just anything else?
Anything else. It's made for nobody. No, I can't see anybody enjoying this movie, even on a so bad it's good level, or even like just a morbid curiosity because of its reputation. Within 10 minutes, you're gonna be like, oh, fuck, I get it.
It's definitely an example.
You fucking love cookies.
I mean, all the sentiments are shared from both you gentlemen, but I'll also say that, Adam mentioned the idea, like, it's not even so bad it's good level, because it is definitely a great example of a terrible comedy that you can't really enjoy, because it's very obnoxiously trying to get you to laugh. Like, hey, laugh at that, you said cookies! Fuck off, we're trying to make you laugh! And you can tell that, and your ribs just get sore by the end of it. And there's just so much lazy filmmaking, lazy writing. Especially, we didn't even mention his whole pacifist arc that isn't an arc at all. Where he's just like, oh man, I don't use a gun. And Whoopi Goldberg's like, you're a cop and you're not going to use a gun. And later she's like, as much as I regret to say this, you were right. You shouldn't use a gun in this case. What made you think that? You just got shot by a gun. And it hurt you. So maybe in this situation you might want to use a gun. I don't know. It's dumb. It's a very terrible movie that I'm glad has sort of just been more obscure than anything else. I would rather see a movie about the making of this movie than I would ever want anyone to see it again. This is a movie that should be like that the Death of Superman Lives documentary about just like, what the fuck happened? How was this a thing? That would be far more interesting to me.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
Yes, especially if just a lot of footage of Whoopi Goldberg being real about the movie would be very interesting. Especially now, just like modern Whoopi's just like, oh, Whoopi's the neighborhood grandma who everybody loves, just like getting a cigarette, like, listen, let me tell you about Theodore Rex. It can go fuck itself. Would be far more fascinating.
Why is Whoopi Goldberg like an Italian from New Jersey?
Look, that's just my impression of anybody who's bitter. Anyway, this movie is terrible, and we should wipe it from the slate, because now we have a movie that I think most of us kind of like. Pretty good, right? Our feature that's pretty good. Jurassic Park.
What the fuck is this movie?
There it is. Welcome to Jurassic Park. The most phenomenal discovery of our time. How'd you do this? Becomes the greatest adventure of all time.
Can I touch it?
Sure. An adventure.
Look out! No!
I can't get Jurassic Park back online.
65 million years in the making. Jurassic Park.
But yes, Jurassic Park, which came out in the summer of 1993, June 11th, 1993. We're recording this the very week of its 25th anniversary. And as we mentioned, it's directed by Steven Spielberg, written by David Coep, who previously we covered his work with Mordecai, how the mighty have sprung and continue to do such great work. Yeah, you all know what this movie is. You've seen this movie, probably. And we're all aware that we all pretty much love it, right?
No, please explain.
Yeah, never seen it. What's it about?
Well, Jurassic World? It's like that, but good.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know
the one with the Star-Lord? Yeah, I know that one.
You know Jurassic World? It's like that, but you can actually tell what the archetypes are, and you have good dialogue.
Very true. So, you know what? I want to ask Sam, being such a big dinosaur lover, was this the movie that sparked that curiosity, or was there an earlier movie that sparked that?
It was actually Carnosaur. A bit later in time, but it was Carnosaur. That was Jurassic Park. No, Jurassic Park is definitely what sparked that. It's what caused a huge dinosaur boom during early to mid 90s, I would say. With a lot of stuff like Prehysteria, as I mentioned, Carnosaur, sadly, Theodore Rex. Anything that was dinosaur related got a huge kickstart off of Jurassic Park, for better or for worse.
Mostly worse.
Mostly worse.
Mostly worse.
All of them.
What about Adam? I'm guessing you saw this obviously at the time it came out and loved it, right?
Yeah, I went to the show and saw this with my mom and I believe my brother. And this movie is single-handedly responsible for two things. One is, I think it's the first movie I saw at the show that actually scared me. The whole goat leg scene just freaked me out because I think I was like 8. And then it just made me love Jeff Goldblum. This movie's just, it's one of Spielberg's best, I think, personally. And none of the sequels even come close to comparing to this one.
Even the one Spielberg made himself.
Yep.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think, what is missing from those movies, and even some of these other dinosaur movies Sam mentioned, that sort of come to light here and are so wonderful?
Well, I'll tell you what the problem I think is with the sequel, especially the second one. It has Agent Smith syndrome for me, where, like Agent Smith in The Matrix, clearly he was killed off and he was, just the secondary character, but everybody loved him, so he came back as the main character. Same thing here with Ian Malcolm. Come on. There's no way Michael Crichton wrote Jurassic Park with the sequel in mind, with Ian Malcolm being the star of it. Everybody loved Ian Malcolm from the movie, so there you go. There's Ian Malcolm as the main character. He's better as a secondary character. But what I think's missing from all the other dinosaur movies, one is budget, two is care, and it was new technology. New things were being explored to make this movie work. By the time it got, 3 years later to awful Theodore Rex, look at the CGI cityscape in that and how bad it is in comparison to anything.
We didn't talk about that, but that's awful.
And it's 3 years later.
Well, and also even the animatronics. There are several points in Theodore Rex where literally there's a point where Theodore is interrogating somebody and his eye droops down like he's a drunk or having a stroke of some sort. And even here, famously, not as bad as Jaws. But Jurassic Park had some production difficulties with the animatronic dinosaurs. There's great footage in the making of the T-Rex in the rain, big infamous sort of gate scene, shaking like he's got the DTs. Just like,
Yeah, because he was getting waterlogged.
Yeah,
all the latex was soaking up the water.
And, we mentioned Ralph Bakshi last week and how his combination of different animation styles was sort of missing later on. I think that's a big key factor to this movie, is that you have the great combination of computer effects and animatronics that really work. And also, something interesting is that originally we were going to have just the CG dinosaurs actually be go motion, stop motion from Phil Tippett, who you might recognize as he did a lot of the work in the Star Wars movies that was stop motion, and also RoboCop. He did all the stop motion Ed 209 stuff. And Spielberg realized, we're going to try and do CG. But at the same time, they still used Phil Tippett on the set, especially, to map out a lot of the motions that would seem realistic, because, he did a great job in a lot of those movies of really getting the realistic feel of those characters and creatures moving. And it really shows, and there's so many different artistic people being combined here, like him, or Dennis Muren, who did a lot of the CG stuff, or Stan Winston, of course, did the practical animatronics. There's a great combination of these various different styles coming together to make something so unique and whole, and also for a very limited amount of time, because I didn't even realize this until watching it. There are only 15 minutes of dinosaurs in the movie.
Wow, that's crazy.
I could tell that instantly when I was not rewatching it recently, but when I rewatched it 5 or 6 years ago, I was there's a very minimal amount of dinosaurs in the movie. But when they do appear, they leave a lasting effect on you, I noticed.
It's what we call the Beetlejuice syndrome, where Beetlejuice is only in Beetlejuice for about 17 minutes of the movie. But you can't tell because of how well edited the movie is, and also just when they do show up, like Sam says, they make a big impact. And even when they don't, they do. There's the whole thing where the raptors are eating the cow. Not a single dinosaur in that shot, in any of that sequence at all.
Yeah, that's true.
It's what a good monster movie should be, because a lot of them refuse to acknowledge the fact that what builds this movie is its cast. And every performance in this movie is pretty great. I would say. Jeff Goldblum, regardless of what you might say of him, is the big standout, I would say, for me, even to this day. And it grows on me even more every time I rewatch it, because, man, that glistening chest, it always gets you every time.
Well, and plus, he's so weird, because, like, he's, Richard Attenborough calls him, like, the rock star of the group, but at the same time, he's such a weird nerd.
So weirdo, yeah.
It's this weird character where he's a combination of so many different things, but you can see the charm, like, you can see why Laura Dern's kind of falling for him, but also, you kind of fall for Laura Dern, because she's great, too. She's shy, kind of nebbishy, but when the dinosaurs actually show up, she just goes into full kind of geek mode, and her face lights up, and even with Sam Neill, who's kind of, more of, like, the curmudgeon-y, cross guy, you see the awe. That's a big thing, is, especially in the sequels, the awe factor is lost, because obviously you're going back, but that's what kind of makes this movie work, is that it is awe-inspiring and terrifying to see these creatures. Like, it makes you realize if you were in the space with these dinosaurs, you'd share a similar mixed feeling of, like, this is so beautiful. They're chasing after me. Oh my god, they're so majestic but terrifying. It's...
Oh god, my legs are being eaten, but they look so beautiful.
That's how I would die in Jurassic Park 2.
That's how everyone would die. If you go to Jurassic Park and the first instinct is just like, oh man, this dinosaur's chasing after me. But fuck, it's a dinosaur. Like, you're likely gonna be eaten. That's fine. That's a way to go out.
Because it really feeds into a childhood fascination. Spielberg talked about this along with rewatching Jurassic Park. I also rewatched, I got the Blu-ray, and I rewatched the making of Jurassic Park, which is so admittingly nostalgically tied, because I watched that just as much as I did the movie when I was a kid, with James Earl Jones narrating, talking about the whole making of the movie. And
oh my god, I completely forgot about that.
I love that so much when I was a kid.
Oh my god, I've seen that so many times too. This is awesome.
It's pretty stellar.
But Spielberg talks about the idea that as a kid, dinosaurs don't exist, but you're so fascinated by the idea of them when you go to museums and stuff like that, that it builds a mythology, even though it's real. It's a real thing that existed on our Earth, and we find new evidence about it every day. But dinosaurs is an interesting mythology, especially as a child. Like, everybody goes through a dinosaur phase between ages 2 and 6. Right? Like, you have little toy dinosaurs and shit. You love dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't grow out of them. Wink, wink.
Sam still has his dinosaur toys from when he was 7.
I'm still dressed like that kid in the first scene of the movie, where it's just like, that's bullshit, and I'm wearing my striped shirt and my hat, as Alan Grant comes up to me and says, listen, kid, I hate you.
The thing I really appreciate upon this watch, with Alan Grant especially, is just that Sam Neill has a great face that's also menacing. Like, there's a warmth that comes in occasionally, but his face is so angular in an interesting way, and it sort of points out at you. Like, I love the bit where the raptor hatches, and he asks, what species is this? And it's lit perfectly, where, half his face is cascaded in darkness, and they say, oh, it's a velociraptor. It's like, you bred raptors. He looks down at him. I love how angular his face is, and it really works for him. It fits into sort of the pop archetype of his character.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I love that, it's so funny that you brought that up. He almost seems to lose that part of his features once he warms up to the kids in the later third of the movie, where he becomes, their guardian, basically. Try to protect him, and he's making the jokes, like in Big Tim, the human piece of toast. And stuff like that. I mean, Sam Neill's so awesome in this. I can't think of one performance I don't like.
So I want to comment on this, because a lot of people have issue, whenever I hear people complain at all about Jurassic Park, it's with...
Well, fuck them, first of all.
Well, right, but to hear them out, I've heard a lot of people have issue with the kids. Tim and Lex, Joseph Mazzello, and Ariana Richards, respectively, for oh my god, they do stupid stuff, why do the kids do this, why do the kids do that, I wouldn't do that in Jurassic Park. Yes, you would.
Yes, you fucking would, you cowards.
Well, why are the kids doing that in this movie about a fictional, sci-fi theme park with dinosaurs in it? Who gives a shit? So what, the kid can hack a computer. So the fuck what? There's a raptor trying to bust through the door. But even you got a problem with the kid hacking?
Even regardless of that, it's more just I've heard oh my god, why do you bring out the flashlight? That's dumb, this is dumb, that's dumb.
They're kids. They're scared.
Well, yeah, plus... anybody who's even the paleontologists who are barely able to comprehend this, because it's we understand vague things about dinosaurs we know from fucking digging up their bones. also
Right.
have that like terror, but at the same time, these kids don't even have that, so they're naturally terrified. Even the lawyer's terrified like that. Which, credit to Martin Farrow. I love Martin Farrow in this movie. For just moments like we could have a coupon day. Like he's trying to
what a scumbag.
fucking ideas. Or even when he's talking about like what is this? These scientists are their autoerotica? Which is a line I forgot about. That's so good. In the middle of this, but like those people are realistic, grounded characters who people don't want to accept because it's like, well, I'm viewing this from a third-party perspective, therefore I know exactly what not to do. Fuck you! If you're in a first-person perspective, you have no idea what to do in the situation.
It's even comforting to know that Sam Neill's character, Dr. Alan Grant, actually winds up being really sympathetic towards the children, despite his other despise of being around kids. He winds up being very sympathetic in that case because he becomes a hero to them after that. And I really dig the way his character arc goes throughout the entire movie. Started from the beginning where he's very like he's a little indie, little Indiana Jones in him, but other than that, he grows into his own character by the end, and you just really love him.
And we should also talk about, I think, a character who I, especially upon this rewatch, I grew to even love more, despite the fact that he's kind of the villain of the movie, but you can't help but kind of be enamored with him, is Richard Attenborough as John Hammond. Especially because upon this rewatch, I really realized a big part of the world building that nobody really talks about, that I truly love about this movie. As a kid who grew up in Orlando, went to Disney and Universal Studios a lot, the world building of this theme park is tremendous. Mm-hmm. It really feels like this could be a place that exists that would be a tourist trap for people who would be able to go on this island. But at the same time, like with him, you really get that sense that he is a nebbish kind of quiet guy who wants to be a showman, who wants to be that guy, especially with like the flea circus bit. He's somebody who like has a lot of money and loves the idea of showcasing a big thing for people to watch. And you can see that enthusiasm on his face and the true regret and remorse that happens as things start falling apart. But then his acceptance by the end of it of like, this is unsafe. I can't keep this going anymore. My grandchildren are at stake. It's so awesome. Especially, I didn't even think about this. This is Spielberg directing the director who beat him for Best Director for E.T.
Oh, no shit. That's right.
Because Attenborough won for Gandhi that year. I didn't even think about that until this rewatch.
Do you think they, like, fought? Like, had a fist fight and stuff before they started filming?
Clearly. That's exactly what happens.
Went out in the jungle, took their shirts off. Had a Man vs. Wild situation.
They're just pelting each other with amber fossils.
Yeah. We're settling this shit now, Attenborough.
But, what...
Girl.
Clever girl, yes. But, Sam, what about his character and also the sort of the theme park world building? What do you think about all that?
Believe it or not, as a huge fan when I was a child, his character actually he had that warmth to him that felt like he was inviting me personally to the park, and in a way that wasn't like it's similar to the way like Disney was, but it's done in a way where he has a naivete that a child would have, and that seems sort of enthusiasm. I think that's a huge part of why I grew to really love dinosaurs, is because it's actually partly because of him, because he has that same sort of fanaticism about him whenever he's talking about dinosaurs or when he was talking about the structure of the park. And even the end where he that remorse you mentioned plays a huge factor into it, and that the relatability to me, that makes him even better than every time I watch a movie, I always like find new things with this character. Also, really do not like his interpretation in the book. I just want to quickly bring that up because he's a shitty grandpa. He's also a shitty park runner. Just a shitty human being in general, and I don't like that because it's an archetype we've seen a dozen times. It's like, oh look, it's a CEO, doesn't care about anyone except himself. But here it was refreshing because it was this park runner, this massive billionaire who actually wanted to show something. And he had money to put into it, but he wasn't driven by greed. He was driven by his own innovation to do that.
Driven by a real, like, mad desire. One man's dream, much like Walt Disney. To do something crazy, something weird. Only instead of doing Epcot, the city of the future, it's Dinosaur Park.
Right. And, it's funny what Sam said. He's not just some greedy, stereotypical CEO, blah, blah. That's literally who the villain was in the second one. who was supposed to be his nephew or whatever. They just took his same character, and that was it.
And Richard Attenborough was like, Steven, I'll appear back, but only if I get to be in a bed for most of my scenes.
Yeah, exactly.
Though also,
you gotta arm wrestle me, you bastard.
Well, also credit to Jurassic Park 2, and in this respect, they take his death in the book and apply it to Peter Stormare in a better way.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, because they basically do the same thing, but it works better for Peter Stormare, because you can believe him as like a mercenary who's a piece of shit to dinosaurs, and that gets his comeuppance.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he gets it rough in that book.
Oh,
Everyone gets it. Everyone gets it so rough. Even the dinosaurs who don't deserve it. I'm like, what? Like, and this is the same dude who's making a Westworld movie. And I'm like, you really love your violence in theme parks, buddy.
Yeah, just theme parks going wrong. He's just like, would Michael Crichton as a child go to Disneyland and just like, I want all this to fuck up. Let's fuck it up.
I want them all to fall out of Space Mountain.
I want the Pirates of the Caribbean to storm and pillage
He's
the rest
running
of the
around and shit. Anarchy! Anarchy!
Hey, don't spoil Westworld Season 3, alright?
Hey, please keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle. Rebellion!
I think we should talk about the real villain of the movie, the Mr. DNA.
Go on.
Guy. When he says dinosaurs, it drives me nuts the way
you
he says
mean dinosaurs?
Yeah,
dinosaurs.
I hate it so bad. And that's how you get a dinosaur. Like, oh, get the fuck out of here, man.
Well, that's part of the world building I really love about the theme park
me
element
too.
of it.
It's great.
Is that it's so realistic to the corniness of a theme park attraction. And even the fact that it's just like, oh, can we get out of these seats? It's more like a ride. You can't really get out, which is something you always wonder, especially as a kid, especially in those sort of like, those particular attractions in Disney World that are just like, here's one room, and then we go over, there's another room. Don't you like these rooms? Can we go inside the rooms? No, you can watch them.
right, yeah.
But yeah, especially I love when Attenborough goes up to the queue, just like, oh wait, this is my part where he talks to himself on the screen and awkwardly has the cue cards and stuff.
Yeah, that's the part of the thing I was saying about his character. Like, he has that enthusiasm in mostly every scene he has when he's trying to introduce the park, and like he's talking to like grown adults too. He's not talking to children, except like sure like his own children are there, but like it's mostly just adults and fucking and like the lawyer. Like it's like like he has so much care into every scene he's in.
Yes, but let's talk about my favorite side character, especially considering rewatching this movie more and more, has to be Nedry. That's played by Wayne Knight.
He's so great. He's so great.
Who, especially watching it now, feels very prescient in terms of asshole hacker dude who wants to fuck everyone over. Feels
he's such a piece of shit too.
Feels timeless, and in a way that still really works. Especially he's just like, I do so much work and you pay me so little. And it's like, your financial problems are your own, Mr. Nedry. It's so good. And also, of course, the scene where he gets the shaving cream kit for the first time, and he makes a sound that sounds like he's a squeaker toy that just ran out.
I know. That whole scene was great, though. Dotson, we got Dotson here.
See, nobody cares.
See, no one cares.
Do you agree with our sentiments, Sam?
I agree with sentiments, and I hate this. Here's the thing. People keep talking about those kids being in trouble. You should fucking be angry at Nedry for allowing that to happen. Nedry's the whole reason why this movie happens in the first place. Fuck him. I'm glad he got fucking shot out by that Dilophosaur. Like, I'm glad that happened.
Catch, stupid.
Yeah. See the stick? Yeah, fetch the stick, stupid.
He is a great metaphor for man's hubris in this movie, in terms of just like, I can get around these dinosaurs. I've been in a computer lab and I've been studying how their security systems work. I know how to get around this. No, you don't. You're gonna get your ass poisoned on.
This whole movie is just dinosaurs exploiting mankind's weaknesses. Because you have the scene later, the clever girl scene, where it's just like, yeah, I'm a dinosaur, but I'm smarter than you, so here I am sneaking up and just clawing your head out.
And that's another great thing, is that the dinosaurs do feel, more so than monsters, feel like characters.
Exactly.
And what I really love is that even though they're quote-unquote monsters of the movie, Spielberg sort of has a Switzerland-style treatment of them. They're very in the middle. They want to attack these people just merely for the sake of food, but it's not out of any, like, malice or clear evil and sinisterness. They're just like, yeah, we want to eat.
To allude back to your question you asked me earlier, and that's a beautiful point, the sequels did have that. Mm-hmm. Like with the Spinosaurus in Part 3, and then with the, whatever the fuck, I forget what it's even called, the new
Ignoramus Rex.
Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then, even the Velociraptors, Blue and all that stuff, they overdid it. They way overdid it. Instead of just the classic, these animals have been extinct forever. They wake up in this environment. They don't know where they are. They're just defending themselves.
Like, I love the Spinosaurus in 3, but he just becomes the predator at a certain point, where he's always stalking these humans in every scene.
No one can hear that fucking thing coming.
Except
until the satellite phone goes on. That's when they can hear that giant fucking thing coming through the woods.
With this big-ass dorsal fin.
I don't know, controversial opinion. I prefer 3 to 2, even though they're both bad movies.
I agree.
Is that controversial? Because I don't like 2 at all. And I think 3 is at least fun.
3 gets way more shit, and 2 is just like, well, what about the trailer scene? And, like, 5 other scenes that are good. Sure. Like, there are a few handfuls. It's not the worst Spielberg movie.
There's also a gymnastics scene. So
there's true. There's that. And also, more importantly, a rare example of Jeff Goldblum just not giving a shit.
At all.
But that's so rare.
And Julianne Moore. Not giving a shit either.
No. And then William H. Macy making the best out of garbage dialogue in 3 is so much more fascinating. Or Taya Leone. I don't know. But anyway, we're getting off track. So, with Jurassic Park and the animals, I think the best example of that really is the T-Rex, who kind of becomes the hero at the end, but it's more just out of a sake of, like, he doesn't give a shit about the humans. He's just like, I want to eat these fucking raptors. They're just causing noise. It's a great example of, like, he's an iconic hero of sorts for the franchise, but in this movie, he's more of just, like, chaotic neutral of sorts.
As she should be, because I think the T-Rex is served best when she has her own path set in mind. She is the dinosaur with no name, if I may say, in that she just goes wherever she needs to be for her own purpose, as opposed to World, where she just becomes like a huge hero at the end. I'm like, look, everyone root for the T-Rex, and look, her buddy Velociraptors are there to help her out. It's like,
and they nod at each other because they're friends.
Oh, yeah. God.
I know you.
I see you. I know who you are.
No. The real you.
Now, if we went that far with it, that'd be way more interesting than what they did.
That's
fucking amazing.
If it turned into a fucking rumble match at the end, it would have been awesome with all the dinosaurs just chipping in to fight Indominus Rex. That would have been dumber, but would have been actually far more interesting than what we got. Anyway, I want to get back to the T-Rex just because the thing about the T-Rex is that every shot the T-Rex is in is gorgeous. It's amazing. There's not a single shot of this movie with the T-Rex that looks bad.
Yeah, and even, the CG effects, obviously, they're 25 years dated. There are points where you kind of obviously feel like, okay, these are early CG effects. But at the same time, they never feel inconsistent in this world. You never feel like that shot looks worse than the other.
No, they don't.
No, yeah. And it's,
I agree.
And I think that's the CG that holds up the best, is because there are points where you see, like, even Jurassic World has that. There are moments where, like, wow, that is a beautiful CG effect. And other points where it's like, this is garbage. And it's interesting, the only consistent thing is the few animatronics we get, like the Brontosaurus who dies. Adam, are there any other sort of character-driven dinosaur moments that you really enjoy?
I love the whole scene with the Triceratops, where it's down and, she gets right up on it, she's checking it out, and then just the comedic payoff at the end. Ever since I was a kid, I loved that scene. That is one huge pile of shit. Yeah, you're going to want to wash your hands before eating anything. No, I love that scene. And then the kitchen scene with the kids and the raptors. That was so tense. And it's still pretty intense, really, when you think about it. I mean, there's nothing in this movie for me that doesn't still hold up. I'm willing to look past, dated special effects just because of what they're trying to do.
Right, because the characters, like Sam mentioned, really hold the movie together, including the characters of the dinosaurs, who are brought to life by the still impressive CG work that, even if it's dated in terms of its look, mainly works because the characters of the dinosaurs feel so real, and especially when they're animatronics, and also, of course, all the human characters have a similar thing like that. Even as thankless a role as it is, Sam Jackson gives so much to the lead computer scientist.
He really does. He really does in those couple scenes. God damn it, I hate this hacker crap.
The thing that makes me laugh is they do intense close-up of his lips as he's just saying, and like, goddamn, they make that look tense too.
That cigarette is his favorite prop. He just loves utilizing that cigarette anytime he can. And this is young, hungry Sam Jackson. This is a year before Pulp Fiction, so you can tell that like he's like bringing a lot to that part. Even just a moment of like, he didn't say the magic word, please. So much into it. And also his presence with the arm even works where you don't see him die, but that arm, despite how cheap effect that is, it still really is palpable. Like, oh fuck, they ate Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
The only thing that was missing was a velociraptor holding up, like saying, "Hey, how you doing?"
It's like that shot from It where he's like eating the arm and he just starts waving with it.
Yeah. Adam mentioned the Triceratops scene. And that's the key thing. This is an important thing. When you're ever making a monster movie, your emphasis shouldn't be just about making a monster movie. You should also be focused on trying to make those monsters not just monsters, but characters. Because that is the thing I keep saying, even with the sequels. I enjoyed 3, but the one thing 3 didn't have was that bond between where the actors, the characters worked off the dinosaurs, the main thrust of these movies. It had that one scene where they just looked at the brachiosaur and the other dinosaurs, but that was it. Here you get a scene with the brachiosaur where they interact with the brachiosaur and they build off character development off of it. And that's what you should do. It's like you should expand these characters in a way where, hey, we got downtime. Let's just reminisce and just talk about our past lives and where we're going after this. And that's a huge thing to keep in mind when you're making any sort of monster movie. Is pretty much that.
It's a character moment to breathe, which you need especially in a movie like this where you're trying to mix the awe with the horror, the terror, and all that stuff. That's a great point, is that the Triceratops scene really does that, where you see Ellie trying to examine what exactly is wrong with the dinosaur. You see the kids obviously falling in love with it. You see Jeff Goldblum kind of awkwardly reacting, as Adam mentioned. Or my favorite bit of it is Alan Grant going on top of the dinosaur and letting it breathe and make him move up and down. It's a childlike, awesome, wonderful moment that added a sincerity to his character, that showed you kind of the edge is kind of warming up a bit, but in a way that felt real for his character of a paleontologist who's discovering dinosaurs, living and breathing for the first time here. It's wonderful, and it's definitely, and also it's that dinosaur barely moves, but it feels real. It feels like it's actually sick. You feel genuine sympathy for it.
Yeah, that sense of humanity that you need in those scenes is important.
So let's go into final thoughts about Jurassic Park. Sam, our guest, go ahead.
Jurassic Park is a classic. It's not Theodore Rex, but I will say...
No, it is not. It's not that. That's very true.
That's true. It's not. Jurassic Park is a very special movie in that every time I watch it, it's always a grand time. And I think the movie is shot in a way where even with its heavily reliant CG moments, it still feels very theatrical and still feels like classic. And that's a very rare term for me to throw around, considering they're playing movies that try to have that aesthetic around that time. But this nails it from beginning to end, including the one scene with the glass. So the one that like everyone loves to use, even up to this day, is the glass of water with the ripple effect. It's an incredibly powerful moment, and it even works better because it builds up so well toward the T-Rex reveal.
Yeah, also a shout out to the fact that that's a great example in this movie where, despite how much obviously everyone loves the John Williams score, there's so many moments in this movie that I forgot don't have any score at all. Like that whole sequence. Not a bit. They knew when to use it and when not to.
Exactly. You need to know when to stop playing your fucking music, because it's just like you can't have a T-Rex chasing you and have it always be like dun 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 dun.
Adam.
I mean, Sam said it best. This movie is a classic. It is absolutely a classic. It's the first blockbuster that I can really remember. I know I saw the original Batman at the show and stuff, but I was really young. I think I was like 5 when that came out. But I remember this one. I remember the hype. I remember how crazy it was and how it was just the biggest movie ever. And I know I saw it at least twice at the show, and I've seen it I don't know how many times since. There's not one thing about this movie that I'd be like, I could do without that. I think everything in it's fine the way it is. I don't think anything needs to be added. I don't think anything needs to be changed. And I don't think that there should have been more than just this one. I think this by itself would have been a perfect standalone summer blockbuster movie.
But Adam, what about $1 billion in grossing for a nostalgic sequel?
Of course. Well, that's why we're getting the fucking shitty sequel to the last one. Because it made so much money. Everybody knows that movie is fucking horse shit. But yet, here comes the sequel.
Because you ate it up, because fuck you, you like dinosaurs. And you like Jurassic Park.
I didn't go see that
You love Baryonyx. I know you do.
I like Bryce Dallas Howard, so I just went to support her.
Who must be another Baryonyx.
But yeah, I agree with everybody's sentiments here, but something else that I think really especially works about this movie is that it's a great example of Spielberg as a showman with a humanist sort of attitude. And I think that's really what works about it, is that you really, as Sam mentioned, there's a human element that really makes the wonder really expand really well, which is something that's missing from all those other movies, is the human characters feel a lot more sort of soulless and a lot more archetypal without actually adding brief character moments that make them feel alive. I like Chris Pratt, I like Bryce Dallas Howard. They don't have any real character in Jurassic World, I would argue. And I think that's something that all of these people have. And it's not something of just like, oh man, it's one of the greatest movies of all time. Why did you chill in comparison to Jurassic World or Lost World or Jurassic Park 3? I'm not expecting any of these movies to really achieve that same height. But even being good is a hard hurdle for them because they don't have that simple core element. And it's something that Spielberg does not just with how the characters interact with each other, but we didn't mention a lot of some of the great innovative camera work, like the innovation of... There's a scene where they see the brontosaurus for the first time, one of the classic iconic moments, and there's a shot that's of like where they would be like shin level, the camera would be, watching as like, you know, Ellie and Alan Grant look up at the brontosaurus. I rewatched that documentary and it alerted me to something that I just didn't realize. In prior contexts where like you'd have an optical effect, the camera would be far too big to ever achieve that shot. In that way, this is not hyperbolic, that is literally on level with in Citizen Kane them doing like a floor level shot. Because that never fucking happened before. That's just how innovative this movie is, even without the effects work. The camera work in combination with that really makes it something otherworldly in terms of what it can really achieve, and really give you that human perspective that makes you invest in it so much. It's not just how great the interaction is between all the characters, it's also just in the way that Spielberg achieves giving you this human perspective on not just the big environment of a park, but also the big environment of monsters walking on the earth again after 165 million years.
By making you feel like you were there. And the other thing I want to mention, the sequels are going straight for being an action flick. Each one of these are trying to emphasize on the action, and that's not what Jurassic Park is. People have to think it's like, oh, well, it's an action horror movie. But it's not necessarily that. It's a mixture of those, but it's mostly the suspense film, but with a lot of added character moments that are, some are slow, some are quick, but it all is well paced together in a way that helps it make what it is. Whereas the sequels forgot that and don't even try to be anything more than that. The problem is that they quadruple down on just these dinosaurs to a point now where like the dinosaurs don't feel like they're dinosaurs, they're just straight up monsters. And that's my biggest problem, is like these are animals you're dealing with and you're making them feel like they're just another xenomorph or a predator, and I don't really like that. I don't really care for it. I think the best course of action for these sequels is just to understand what made the first one good and go a different route. Like, I'm not talking like just mild differences. I'm talking drastically different in a way that would surprise people rather than just be like, oh, it's another, like, we have to escape the park because everything's gone wrong.
But fuck that. Let's just do nostalgic references to the first movie, because you remember that?
Eventually, we will have the dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour. Yes?
Yes, eventually we will. I love that I just criticized that, and then you just literally quoted the movies, so we just completely look like hypocrites.
Yep, that was the point.
Yep. And on that note, on that sad, hypocritical, bitter note, that's the end of our double feature discussion for the evening. Before we go, we've got some feedback to read. Interestingly, great credit to all of you out there who are fans of us. We posted a little bit about, in honor of this episode, about the best and worst movies featuring dinosaurs in them. And we got a lot of responses. We really appreciate that, including from Heather Thomas. I wonder who that might be. Maybe.
Might be my wife.
Adam, are you wearing a wig?
Yep.
I knew it. Who says, worst, Theodore Rex. Best, I'm sorry, LMFAO, Land Before Time. I don't think that's a sorry-worthy thing. That's a great choice.
I don't think so. I think that makes sense. I mean, I think we even mentioned that on our last episode.
Yeah, when we talked about Don Bluth. That movie still holds up really well.
It's a really underrated movie, I feel. Even more as time goes on.
Yep, and the best Diana Ross song ever, right, Sam?
Oh, yeah. Oh, way.
We don't have the rights, Sam. Not yet.
That's right.
Next up, from Luke McBride, worst, Godzilla 98, the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3, Sharptooth from Land Before Time, but best, Jurassic Park and also Journey to the Center of the Earth 1959. That was an interesting choice. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I don't know. That guy's...
That's a very fascinating list of, like, just, like, bad dinos versus good ones. I don't know. You could say the reverse in certain instances, because I feel like some of those dinosaurs... Like, my problem is, like, with the early stop-motion dinosaurs, especially during the 50s, is that they all pretty much were just three dinosaurs. It was like, here's your Apatosaurus, here's your T-Rex, here's your Stegosaurus or / Triceratops. It wasn't very flexible, and they all had the same look to them, and it was just bland. It wasn't until Jurassic Park happened where it was just like, wow, these feel very distinct and refreshing.
That's true. King Kong kind of set the precedent, and everybody just kind of followed that.
They just basically called that.
Yeah, they basically did.
I would actually say what Toho did with Godzilla was interesting, because a lot of their big kaiju are based off certain dinosaurs. Like Anguirus is based off kind of like Ankylosaurus, Rodan, Pterodactyl, and Gorosaurus is just fucking Gorosaurus from the King Kong movie. So it's just like you have a mixture of different dinosaur designs there that are all cool, including Godzilla himself.
Very true. Very true. Next feedback from Oliver Sloan, who says, favorite Valley of Guanji from Harryhausen, Jurassic Park, the original, and any Dave Allen stop-motion dinosaurs. Not favorite? None. I love any and all cinema dinosaurs.
You get a thumbs up, my friend.
Has that motherfucker seen Theodore Rex?
That's true.
You get a thumbs up.
Oliver, tell us how you feel about Theodore Rex. We'll read on the next episode.
Absolutely.
And if you tell us, I'll give you a free a blueprint for how to make your own cooking machine.
What everyone needs in their lives. Next from Nate Thomas. More Your Family Oak just coming about?
Yeah, that's my brother.
Each person's just Adam, but with a different accessory.
Yeah.
He's the real Peter Sellers of our podcast. Nate says, dude, the Harryhausen T-Rex from Kong killed by ripping its jaw open. I love the Dilophosaur that killed Nedry. Also satisfying. Fetch, stupid. Yes, we quoted that as well. That's very true. Also, with the Kong, I'm gonna put on my nerd glasses. Well, actually, that would be Willis O'Brien who did the effects work for King Kong, not Harryhausen.
Oh, God.
There you go, folks.
Though Harryhausen did say that Kong was the inspiration for him getting into stop motion. So without Willis O'Brien, you wouldn't have Harryhausen dinosaurs that happened later.
So you're both kind of right.
Sure, we'll do that.
One way more than the other.
Our next feedback comes from Alex Mistretta, who says, Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend. It's kind of a love-hate thing.
I'm so glad. Baby is a movie people don't bring up enough. And I think it's maybe because I haven't seen it.
I think it's brought up just enough.
But no, I haven't seen Baby in the longest time, and I've always been curious to go back. But I remember when I watched Baby, it was like the most surreal experience. Because it's like, dinosaurs are real, and they're here now.
Oh, God.
Maybe keep those childhood memories alive, Sam. Maybe
don't
go back. And then Brian Kane said, not from a film, but Vertigo from Primal Rage, the best character in the worst fighting game. Sam, you're a big video game enthusiast. Would you agree with this or argue it?
Primal Rage is just a Mortal Kombat ripoff, but it has some of the best dinosaur designs that are very unique. You have your Scorpion Sub-Zero T-Rexes in those games, and they're really cool. I've always wanted a remake of those games, a la Killer Instinct, like what they did recently with Killer Instinct.
Thank you for everyone who shared that feedback. We definitely want to keep doing that more, and we love hearing from you guys, once again. And you can do that either on our Facebook page, which is where we posted that. We also post stuff on the Twitter at DEDBpod. You can also email us at doubleedgedoublebill@gmail.com. You can even message us in our private Twitter accounts at NotTheWho'sTommy or Adam.
Malekith Fan 6969.
So great. We also want to thank some people before we leave. Chris Oliver, who does the music for our show. Listen to more of his music at chrisoliver.bandcamp.com. Also, a big shout out to Emily Scarda, who has our fresh new art. We commissioned that from her. She accepts commissions over at fiverr.com/EE-Scarda. And also we want to thank Sam Brutuxan for coming on the show. Sam, you have anything to plug, anything to mention about your presence on the interwebs?
Is that cookies? Also, you can find me on Twitter.
It's mostly tweeting about cookies. That's mostly what
about cookies.
Yep.
And we also want to encourage you all to subscribe to us on iTunes, rate and review us to give the show more visibility. But on that note, gentlemen, we must leave into the prehistoric age, into the sunset, like the T-Rex himself. Just watch out for that banner coming down. I said move! It's coming!
Oh, fuck.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.